with Miss Trey. I am Miss Trey. I would like to invite you into my world, and I have a wonderful guest today: entrepreneur, public speaker, healer, so many hats. Nzingah Oniwosan. How are you doing? I hope I
I
didn't
am.
butcher your name.
It's a little twisted. It's in
Okay, I'm
Nzingah.
gonna keep it.
It's in Nzingah Oniwosan.
I was trying. I was like, I know I'm gonna butcher her name, so I'll let her just go ahead and say it. How are you doing today?
I'm doing great. How are you?
I am wonderful. Thank you for being a part of Trend Trade. Um,
Thank, thank you for
I
having
was
me.
looking over everything that you do, everything that you're a part of, and it's like phenomenal. We'll just jump right into it. You have a app that is called 365 Zine, correct?
Correct.
Tell us a little bit about that and how you got started and what could we expect from that app?
Sure. I wanted to. 365 Zing is my baby. It's my 40th day, for the 40th birthday present to the world. I wanted to leave a mark, and I felt that this would be the best thing to do as a Black woman. It was birthed out of my own personal journey in terms of trying to obtain wellness. When I was pretty young, I was diagnosed with an autoimmune disorder, a brain tumor, as well as PCOS. And 20 years ago, I was able to turn my life around through a lifestyle overhaul. And that looked like finding people who could guide me in terms of therapy, finding people who could help me take a holistic lifestyle, finding people who could teach me how to eat the right foods to heal my body. And that journey was not easy. I had some highs and lows, and I knew that a lot of women, particularly Black women, were having the same struggles that I had 20 years ago, that they wanted to be better, but they didn't necessarily know where to go. And to sift through everything, particularly now with the internet, can be really overwhelming. So I created 365 Zing to centralize all the things that we need in one place to be well, because oftentimes there might be an app that has recipes on it, but it doesn't have workouts on it. And so through this app, everything is in one place. And we also have live classes, which I think is also important, because oftentimes we need things to happen in real time. And I wanted the teachers to look like the people on the app. So all of our instructors are women of color as well.
That's truly amazing because, like you say, we do need it, especially in this time period that we're in now in this pandemic, where we're totally our mental health is either out of whack or our physical health is out of whack, or just all around. We need the assistance to get back on track. So
Indeed.
that app is truly phenomenal and something that every woman should check out. Because I know, like this pandemic, you're either eating something, you're stressing over something, and if you have everything in one that you can kind of get back on track, that is the best thing to have at this moment.
For sure.
So I noticed that you're a pianist as well. When did you start playing the piano?
I started playing the piano when I was 7 years old. My instructor was a Black woman who wanted to make sure, Miss Angie Williams, wanted to make sure that the children of color could have access to private piano lessons. And I actually met her when I was in preschool, and life would have it that we would run into each other again. And she would be my piano teacher through high school. So she played a major part in my life outside of piano lessons. But the only reason why I would say we were able to afford those piano lessons is she literally was giving it $5 a session.
Black girl magic.
Yeah, indeed.
Okay, so with your app, let's go back to your app. With your app, you have the workouts, you have the meal plans as well as
Correct.
the yoga. You have a little bit of everything. So as far as someone that is green to, for instance, holistic um, lifestyle, how is that, and how do you explain that to them, and how they, get that in their regimen on their daily regimen?
Great question. So we actually have courses built into the app, so that they don't have to feel like they have to do everything all at once. And some of the courses are on demand, which means it's self-paced. And then we have courses that are led in real time. So for instance, a few months ago, we had a course called six Weeks to Holistic Wellness. And every week we tapped a different topic and then they would do the work and we'd talk about it with the coach that we had. And so people found that to be very helpful. And what's also good is we have women coming from different walks of life, women who had been doing things for a long period of time, and women who were just entering this particular lifestyle. So that made for good exchange as well. And we also have workshops in addition to the courses that we have. And we try to explain everything. And we have some prompts in there to help them start to build things out in terms of their daily lifestyle practices. We have some suggestions.
Okay, so with that being said, what is your go-to drink, meal to lower blood pressure? Because I know that's another thing that we're dealing with in this pandemic as well, not knowing what's next and kind of like all over the place. So what is your go-to to say, we'll start with this and try to add this into your everyday regimen?
So it's so interesting that you should say that. I am actually working with Ad Council and the Medical Association, for a campaign that's called Release the Pressure. And the goal of that particular campaign is to reduce hypertension amongst Black women, because the statistics are 50% of Black women over 20 have hypertension, which is crazy when I got those stats. So one of the things that I suggested for this particular campaign is a green smoothie. And the reason why the green smoothie is great is because it has a lot of ingredients that will help to lower the hypertension. And I like to suggest replacing it with the breakfast, because oftentimes breakfast is where we see some major culprits in terms of foods that would lift or create a higher number in terms of our hypertension. Another thing that I suggest, you said just food, or can I make some other suggestions?
Oh, go ahead.
Sure. Another thing I suggest
I'm
outside
a foodie,
of,
so I said food first.
okay, so definitely that. Salads can be really good. You want to start making your own salad dressings, because sometimes that could be the culprit, because a lot of times the salad dressings that you find at supermarkets can be heavy in sugar as well as salt. And so it's really easy to make your own dressing, and so we have some recipes on the app for that as well. But it could be as simple as a little lime, a little salt that you add, and a very little oil or avocado, and then you're good to go with your salad with a couple more ingredients, of course. Other things that I suggest is meditation. So a lot of times when we think about meditation, we think we should close our eyes and say, Om. There's different types of meditation. And one of the things that I love to show my clients and people in general is this one meditation called soft belly breathing. And it's very simple. You don't need someone to lead you. And what you do is you inhale through your nose, exhale through your mouth, and you do that for about 3 to 5 minutes. And it's really amazing to see what a difference that makes, particularly because this particular meditation deals with the belly. And there's this thing called our vagus nerve, which runs from our belly all the way to the brain. And it's associated with fight or flight. That's when we have our stress response. But through this breathing, the simple inhale in through the nose and exhale through the mouth, we're able to down and suppress the stress response that might be happening in our body. So that's why I like that particular meditation. There's another meditation that I like where we actually can show a decrease. I have a stress monitor, and after that meditation, you can see everything dropping significantly. Last time I did, I dropped down like 10 to 15 points just in doing the meditation. So meditation is a great way to do that. And we have passive meditation. So that breathing exercise is definitely a passive meditation, but then you could do something like dancing, and finding movement. I think sometimes we think exercise, but just moving, walking with a friend, doing gardening, walking throughout the house. There's one particular woman I want to meet who lost about 100 pounds and she never left her house. She just made sure she got her 10,000 steps in the house.
What?
Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am.
No, we got to find her.
Yes,
Lost
ma'am.
100 pounds and never left the house.
I mean, she left the house, but she
Well,
made
but
sure.
didn't work out to leave the house.
Yes.
Wow, wow, that's phenomenal. Well, I definitely think that that'll be a good asset to a lot of people because I know my a couple of years ago I actually struggled with hypertension, and I know it was a lot of the stress or whatever, so I had to literally like cut out some things. I still haven't let my pancakes go, but I'm doing a little better.
And it's sometimes it's not. I want to say this because I am a chef and a nutritionist. Sometimes it's not letting things go. It's knowing how to make it in such a way that it's feeding your body instead of throwing your body in duress, right? And so I think sometimes because of dietitians of the past and nutritionists of the past, they would say that we need to eat food that is more Eurocentric and that they say that our foods are bad. But there's ways that we can prepare our foods slightly different and stay connected to our roots and as well as address whatever health crisis we have, right? And it's a lot of times it's quick substitutions, getting rid of the maple syrup, getting rid of like the corn syrup that we have in the pancakes and using real maple syrup or agave. Every time I give people agave, they don't know the difference, right? So making a syrup with berries that you sweeten with honey and then putting that on top, as opposed to using the Aunt Jemima syrup, which we know isn't necessarily the best for us, particularly in our community where we struggle with diabetes and things like that.
That is wonderful. So let's talk about your foundation that you started back in 2005 working with kids.
Yes.
A little bit about that, and I love working with kids. I want to know more about that and how you were working with them internationally and nationally. So tell us a little about that as well.
Yeah, so I started Sankofa's Child to help the educational system and help children at the same time. Let me say that. So I do what's called arts integration. And a lot of times what I do is I go into classrooms and teach teachers how to integrate the arts into their curriculum so that no matter what the child's learning style is, that their needs are met. A lot of times the way our teachers are taught to teach doesn't necessarily lend itself to all types of learners. So a lot of times, children might be auditory and visual, but some children are kinesthetic, right? They need to move to learn. But if you're sitting in a classroom this whole time, then you might be considered a problem child because you're being forced to sit down, when in actuality, we could create a dance to help you learn about a topic or have you do theater where you can move through it. So I've been doing this work now, oh my gosh, for 16 years. I've worked with over 200,000 children. I've worked in over 200 schools. I actually worked with some children today. And the goal is to have children be excited about learning. I was fortunate enough to have been homeschooled for a period of time, and I love learning. And I feel like oftentimes teachers, because of paperwork and things like that, they've lost the joy of teaching. And then that translates into children not necessarily have a joy or passion for learning. And so I come in the middle to bring that passion and joy and excitement back. That work also has looked like me working with a lot of children and adults with disabilities. And that work has been very profound, to be quite honest. And what's beautiful about the work that I've done with Sankofa's Child is that it's not only, I've not been only able to transform the teachers I've worked with and the children that I've worked with or the classrooms I work with or the school, because I've had contracts where I've created programs for school boards. It's transformed me and how I see the world, how I interact with people. And I definitely would not be the person I am today if it wasn't for that work and the people who poured into me as I jumped into that work. Because I was fairly young when I started. I was only, gosh, I'm getting old. I was 24 when I started doing this work full time.
Wow, that is amazing because, like you said, to tap back into the kids and to tap back into the school systems where, like you say, the problem child, and it's not necessarily that they're the problem child, they just learn differently. And unless you
Yeah.
tap into that, they're considered the problem child. They're the ones that, need deep discipline. And it's not the discipline, it's just they learn differently.
Yes. So I remember literally I had a residency where my best student, the teacher was like, oh, it's the teacher, they would drop them off. And the teacher for this particular residency, and the teacher picked up and was like, are you having problems? Let's give them a name, which Dondrell. And I'm like, Dondrell is my best student. And she's like, what? He doesn't do anything in the classroom. He's got straight F's. And I'm like, I could not even imagine that he was an F student because he was so present. And so we tried to strategize to have that same engagement that I was having in my classroom with him in the other setting that he was in, and I that's where I feel like this work is so important. I'm actually going to a conference this week and to talk about strategies so that I can sprinkle a little bit more of this information into the arms of teachers and they can spread it more. But definitely this work is, again, I've done this work in juvenile detention centers. The correctional officers were like, you're making jail too fun. But then I've been fortunate to see some of my kids on the other side of what the system said they were going to be, and they're amazing adults who are now also impacting children. And I will say that if you can spend some time pouring into at least one child, everyone should, because you really don't know what difference you make. And I'm now at a point where the children I work with are grown, like grown. And they'll be like, like, oh my God, it's you. You changed my life. And I was just like, okay, I did. You look like you're my age,
And where did I meet you at?
Yeah, So, and honestly, I've been working with children even before 2005. Straight out of high school, I was working with I Have a Dream Foundation. So I was 18 years old working with children who I was just in school with. And so those children now are they're adults themselves and doing great things. And so I definitely have been on a path for teaching, and I've been teaching in different kinds of ways, but everything comes back to being well and finding alternative ways to wellness for the mind, body, and spirit.
I love that. I absolutely love that because it's so needed with kids. And, as we see on the news, kids are getting into this and getting into that. And it's more so like getting in touch with how they learn, how they can understand, and how they can make a difference in the world, and explain to them how they can do that versus talking at them, talking to them.
Yeah. And I think that's the missing piece. And I didn't realize it until, and this is my last share, but this is like my passion. This is one of my passion places that I don't get to speak out a lot in this kind of setting. I didn't realize sometimes you take for granted, you always question, are you really making an impact? And I worked at this particular site because of the demographics they brought me in. I sometimes get placed into classrooms that they feel like they need someone like myself to come in and do extra work, or the troubled school. And that summer they had a summer program, but I wasn't going to be the summer teacher, but I knew I was going to miss them. So I asked to be a sub. And so the person who I had the contract with mentioned to the children that Miss Nzingah is going to come tomorrow to sub for you all. And she overheard a boy tell his friend, and for me, the key word was a boy, right? Oh my gosh, Miss Nzingah's coming. She is like no teacher you've ever met. You are going to learn so much from her. And then and when she told me that, I was like, really? What? And when I had that the next day when I came in, I was able to ask the question and we did the art, but we were able to still weave the science and the anatomy all in there because they were asking me about the birds and the bees. And I was like, well, how do I explain how reproductive organs work in a way that they will make sense? And at the end, they were like, oh, you should be a teacher here. Because I drew a diagram, and when they asked the question, I added things, and I made analogies and metaphors. But honestly, I think it's my multifacetedness because I do so many things, has also helped me to be the kind of teacher I am or wellness expert that I am, because I'm not looking at the world with one set of glasses, right? And because I can put on another set of glasses, my music, me as a musician, me as a dancer, myself as an immigrant, myself as a neuroscience major, all of those things come in, and that's why I'm able to do the work I do with 365 Zing. That's why the work I do with Sankofa's Child and beyond, you know? And so I say that to say that everyone can be me, no matter what age they are. They just need to know that they don't have to fit in a box. I think sometimes we don't really live to our fullest potential because we're boxing ourselves and because of what society has said that we can be.
Okay, I'm gonna tap into two more things and then I'll let you go. So let's talk about your blog. Yes, baby, I like it raw. I know that was a song. So tell us a little about that and how you got that started and how long you've been doing that. Because that's when I said I said, yo, baby, I like it raw.
Yeah, shimmy, shimmy, yeah, shimmy, yeah. So yes, baby, I like it raw is an extension, is my wellness company. So 365 Zing is yes, baby, I like it raw is baby. And yes, baby, I like it raw was birthed literally this month will make 8 years since I started birthing. Yes, baby, I like it raw. My father had a stroke around this time 8 years ago. And I had all this information from my own healing myself, and I had got certified in different things because I wanted to own my process. But I had imposter syndrome. Because in the wellness space, right, let's be honest, and this is why I built 365 Zing. In the wellness space, you don't see people like me, right? If we don't see Black women, and if we do see Black women, we see ambiguous Black women, right? Women who are not as dark as myself, who have hair that you know they can, with a little water, can just pass a comb through it. My hair doesn't do that, okay? And then okay. And then they're super thin, right? And at the time I had locks too. So that for me was just like, so I had imposter syndrome because here I was vegan, but I was dark skinned, I had locks, I was curvy. And what I had seen in all the spaces that I went for wellness, the women didn't look like me, nor the men, to be quite honest. I didn't see my reflection even in my male counterparts. And so I didn't feel, if I got clients, it was through word of mouth, but I was not actively speaking up because I felt like I need to have more certifications, more education in order to have value. When in reality is I know more than the average person, right? But when imposter syndrome shows up, which is really a fight of
You're in your own way.
perfectionism, right? And I'm using that in quotation because you can't be perfect.
Right.
I didn't do anything. But when my dad had the stroke, I was like, you know so much and you're not sharing the way that you could share. And I was just assessing the people around me, and I was like, there's so many people around you who could use your information. So that January that followed, I decided to do a 30-day raw challenge with a group of friends. And as I was leading them in it and giving them tips and things like that, what kept up coming was the song. Yes, baby, I like it raw. And I was like, you know what? I need to step out of my comfort zone and start a blog for this, right? Because I was sharing the information, but I needed a place that made more sense. And so that's how I started. So one day it was like, well, I want to start the website, but I need a name. And it was just like, okay, I was talking to my friend and was like, yes, baby, I like it raw. And I was just like, yeah, and that's how it came to fruition. So the goal is to let everyone know that everything they need exists in them. They just maybe need a guide to break it open. And so through Yes Baby I Like It Raw, outside of like the services I provide, there's tons of information. If you're trying to unpack your self-care, if you need vegan recipes, if you need some yoga, there's a ton. I have even a podcast on there that I need to actually load up some new things. But there's a lot of information for those who want to start to understand how to be well and understand that wellness is not just one thing, right? Because sometimes I think when we talk about wellness, we focus in on like our physical body, right? But if we're not good here, starting a new exercise routine or starting a new diet isn't going to be sustainable, right? Because whatever is happening here will always come back to bite you, and you'll find yourself in the same place you were, where you started something and all of a sudden you're no longer in alignment with the thing that you wanted to do.
Oh my gosh, that is amazing. So, the juicy part of it all, you're an Haitian immigrant and you started Impact Hub. Tell us about Impact Hub and
Oh man, you got everything on me. Okay.
because I tie in the whole Haiti, like, especially what we're going through as of right now and trying to see what they've been going through over the last couple of years. I wanted to tap in and see how you're assisting and is your project still going on there with the earthquakes and the disasters
Okay.
that have happened.
So Haiti has been a passion for me for a long time. I just want to say I am first gen, so I was born here, but I have a
Okay.
business in Haiti. And I've been going back and forth to Haiti for quite some time. So I'm co-founder for Impact Hub Port-au-Prince, which is a co-working space to help social entrepreneurs. And so when I say social entrepreneurs are entrepreneurs who have a business that focuses on improving the environment that they're in. And so it's not just about the profit, it's about changing the world. And our organization was birthed through our nonprofit, which is called Kaitita, which was birthed out of the earthquake that happened 11 years ago. So with respect to that work, we are still up and running. I am getting ready to graduate some women in an accelerator that I'm running. I've been running for the past 5 months. And when I say this past 5 months have been a doozy, the fact that I'm able to have a graduation to me is like, woo, we went through assassination and earthquake.
Right. That's what I'm like. I want to tap on that. Like not too much so you don't, but
Yeah.
enough to say what's going on because it's been a lot that Haiti has been dealing with over the past 11 years. Just to be point blank
Well,
serious.
it's longer than that, right?
Well, yeah,
And
it's only that, but it's visually for Americans to have.
yes,
Yeah,
yes.
yeah.
And so when people ask me what can they do, support people who have been doing work for an extended period of time on the ground. On the ground. Not people who are starting organizations because there is a crisis. There is an expertise that crisis requires that the average person can't handle. And be careful who you're getting your information from, because social media can be great, but it can be horrible, right? And sometimes the loudest people get seen and they don't necessarily know what they're talking about.
Yes, ma'am.
And so Haiti is complicated, right? To most people, because of what's happening right now, they think that this is the first time that Haitians have been coming through Mexico. This has been going on for a few years. And I've had to translate for people who take that journey. And that journey is horrible. Think Underground Railroad horrible, where you're walking from South America through Central America to Mexico. Forest, jungle, people dying on the way, it's not an easy trek. And so the conversation for me is more like, how do we support people on the ground and organizations on the ground so that Haiti is no longer a place that people run away from, but a place where people feel safe to stay, to grow, and to build, and even return, because we also have a brain drain, right? People come to school in different parts of the world and they don't go back because of the political and just there's so many things, right? And it's not it's not easy to answer in one sentence, but I think that it's a global issue that collectively people of color need to, one, have a disaster plan everywhere we are at, because none of us have a disaster plan. And whenever there's a disaster, we're crying for assistance from people who we also say, leave us alone.
No shots fired.
you know, I always like to use Louisiana as an example. With Katrina, at that time, everyone was like to Bush, like no one was messing with Bush. But then when Katrina happened, everyone uses the quote from Kanye, Bush don't care about us. That should not matter. We have enough people in America so that if there's a crisis, if we were organized, that we should be able to support ourselves. But do we have, now we have, but like at the time, do we have water systems, like water companies? Do we have people who have planes? Who's the person who builds this, build that? So there's some work that we need to do globally. And that's a hard conversation to have, because although we all look the same, we don't have the same vision. We have a tribalism mentality. But the reality is, throughout the world, we are being treated a certain way, and we have certain things that are happening to us because of what we look like, and because of where we came from, which is Africa, right? The reason why we look like this is somebody, either we came by boat or plane, period. Here in the West, right? Either we're boat people or plane people, right? But this is not, some people argue that this is not our land of origin, but it's not. Let's be real. And so there's some work that we need to do, because Haiti's not the only place having a crisis, right? And whenever we have crisis in places where people of color are in concentration, we are never in a position to do the work that we need to do to address it in-house. And when it happens, then we want to scramble. But it's when you are in good times, you prepare for bad times.
Absolutely. Thank you so much for that insight, because I definitely wanted to get a little bit of that knowledge, because a lot of people don't understand and don't know. And so
it's complicated. It's complicated. And the people that were asking for help is part of the reason why Haiti is complicated. So hey, I want to say this, because sometimes people don't understand Haiti. Haiti is not in the situation that it is by itself. When we are the second, and we're the first Black independent nation in the Western Hemisphere, right? And it was the catalyst for everyone else in the West, slave-wise, to fight for their freedom in a different kind of way. When we gained our independence, we didn't just think about ourselves. We started going to other countries to help people fight for their independence. So we were the first, and we were the second after the United States, 1804. And we fought and beat all the world powers at the time. The British, Spain, and France. France just happened to be the people who were the last people there. And they made us pay reparations to slave owners. We stopped paying those reparations in the 1950s. How do you start off a country taking out loans to repay the people who enslaved you?
Wow.
And so a lot of organizations in the United States, particularly banks, have profited off of that, because a loan always has an interest rate.
That's gonna kill you.
Hence why I said 1800s, we paid it out off in the 1950s.
Wow.
And so when they say poorest country in the Western Hemisphere, the question should be why? Yes,
Exactly.
yes, we definitely have internal corruption, but who's helping breathe and foster that corruption? Who has profited? Because, you know, every time I fly to Haiti, it's not a bunch of me on the plane, it's a bunch of on the plane.
Let's call a spade a spade.
So while everyone's saying it's poorest country in the Western Hemisphere, other people see opportunity and they're taking
Mhm.
advantage of it. The only people who are dismissive of Haiti is our brothers and sisters from other parts of the world, you know? So again, the Haiti conversation, I know it's a topic right now, but it's not something, it's literally a course that you need to take over 2
Right.
semesters for you to understand the complexities of Haiti, where we were occupied by the United States in 1915. They changed the constitution so that the US could have more. I mean, when I say it's complicated, it's complicated. So when we see this, what you see are people who are desperate, who are in fear of their lives,
Yeah.
running somewhere that they think is better. But I will say
Exactly.
this: most people, once they come, because I have lots of family, I have a big family, they realize that the American dream is not a dream.
I've heard that too.
You know, yes, there are advantages, but at what cost? You have a house that you can't stay in because you're working all day. You're working 2, 3 jobs, you know? So there's just, you know, it's complicated. So I'm going to stop here because I'm like, oh, you're going to ask me about Haiti? Oh gosh, I have so many opinions on this because my ears are on the ground. I'm working with people, you know, and it's rough. It's rough. And my goal is to pour into the people who are on the ground who need support. And so if people want to support, we have entrepreneurs that you can pour into, that we have on our website, you know, that you can see. And if you feel moved, you can invest in their company that are trying trying to create change, you know. Most people don't want handouts. A lot of them just need a little support with their businesses, and they'll pay a loan back if that's what it is, or an investment back. So that's something I also want to make sure, you know, like we don't need handouts. We just need access. And that's
Right.
been the real
Absolutely.
issue, is we don't have access to a lot of things.
Well, I want to thank you so much for coming on Trending with Miss Trey. You have given a mouthful of information. Can you let everyone know where to find you and if they want to get any more resources about all the things you have going on? Since you
Woo!
have so much going on, definitely let us know and let us also know where you're speaking at this weekend. So maybe if some people are watching, they can come out and see you.
Sure. So you can find me at yesbabyilikeiraw.com. For the app, it's 365 Zing, ZING.com. You cannot download my app from the app stores because I'm not paying them to not do anything for me. So, um, and that's a whole different conversation. In terms of the work that we're doing, in the work that I'm doing in Haiti, you can go to Kay, Tita, TITA.org. There you can see the work that we've done in the past and the work that we're doing. ImpactHub.net or so then we have Port-au-Prince. ImpactHub.net is our co-working space.
Okay.
And then I'm speaking at the FAEE conference in Fort Myers this weekend. So
Yay!
yeah.
Well, I want to thank you so much for being a part. I appreciate you taking time out to drop some gems about wellness, Haiti, what you have going on as far as your platforms, and definitely come back and let us know if you have any exclusives or anything that you want to talk about in the future. And you
Yeah,
have a
thank you
wonderful
for having me.